let's go back to number one. You said, are you creating content for the love of the game? You're saying there's too much monetization of content going on right now.
So my thought is...
Was there a specific piece of content that you came across that you were like, this is terrible content, but this guy's pushing monetization, and now it's just a larger picture of what's going on?
No, it's actually people like Will, our producer.
He's the worst, yeah.
He's great. But my concern is, because of the success of creators and the creator economy and media in general, everyone is thinking their 10-step plan. And I just want to make sure that I genuinely would not advise anyone of getting into this world unless they are obsessed and in love with the content, and they could do it for years without making $1. And I think because we're on the show and we're saying, here's how to scale your business, people are skipping those steps. Would you be okay making this content every day for 3 years without making $1?
This is, you sound like me, episode 1 on this thing.
Yeah.
But I genuinely cannot find successful, sustainable creators that didn't start that way. I'm sure you could like figure it out in a short-term field, but anyone who has ever found a lick of real success in the content creation business has just made shit because they loved doing it. And I think the reason that is because when you just love doing something, it comes from like an internal place, and internal is where like innovation comes from, right? And that's how your content eventually gets out. Like when you get into it for the wrong reasons, you end up creating what other people create. You just see it and you're like, oh, that's what I should do. Like you're chasing the puck, right? Like rather than being where it should go, whatever the fucking saying is. But people start to do what everybody else does because they saw that that's what got them successful. Yeah. When you create from a place of like really loving whatever it is that you're watching, what you're inspired by, you create innovation just in itself because you are making something from nothing. That's what the heart of being a creator is. But I agree with you. Like, I think a lot of it goes back to the entitlement of like the numbers that are flying around on a lot of these platforms. And I think TikTok has done a disservice to a lot of creators because of the raw numbers that people get on specific videos and the raw numbers that you can rack up in such a small amount of time. And the mindset about what those numbers meant 10 years ago, it just has not recalibrated with creators in the modern day space of what those numbers actually mean now and what they could do for your life and the impact of it. Like people will get X number of views on a video or have this many followers or subscribers, and then for some reason feel like they deserve something because of it, right? And it's not like, it's just not what it used to be, and there's a disconnect there that somehow needs to be plugged in.
Well, my Twitter For You page, I guess it's because I stare at the tweet long enough that it keeps feeding me these type, but I keep seeing like this faceless YouTube channel stuff, and it's like, if I started from nothing, I could build a faceless YouTube channel, make $5,000 in revenue, and it's like, yeah, you can make money on social by just trying to monetize shit. But like the people we're speaking to, please like actually love this for the love of the game. Like the only reason I do this is genuinely because if I were not doing this, I would already be doing it. That sounds confusing. Example, I'm going to go to the Knicks game. I would talk about the Knicks with my friends. I would tweet about the Knicks. I would post Instagram stories about the Knicks. I would be engaged in the NBA playoff discourse. I just happen to do it for a job. So if you couldn't do it just for the love of the game, if you can't sit there and watch every Monday Night Football game because you're going to be doing it anyways, don't do it. So, yeah, there's just everyone's so obsessed with the monetization of it. And I think that I was thinking about, like, does anyone even create content nowadays just to create content without even thinking about the plan down the road? Like, I was thinking about the Part of My Take guys. Like, their podcast, they started the podcast not thinking, like, this could be a multi-million-dollar entity someday. Like, they literally just wanted to get jokes off with each other, and I think that has been lost. Everyone seems to have a monetization plan, and I think when it comes from, if it's from a business perspective, right, you're not going to start a new vertical just for the fun of it, but maybe you should.
I would if I loved it enough.
Right.
I don't think there are enough things that I'm like, knowing where I'm at now and knowing the amount of work it would take for me to be okay with doing it, because there's a trade-off now in terms of like my time to put into that and knowing where I need to put some of my time. If it was something I loved enough, I would be fine starting it with no repercussions of monetizing anytime soon. I mean, not too dissimilar from what we're doing here. I do want to kind of like backtrack on that though, because we've had a conversation about you starting content when you originally started a long time ago. You didn't start because you wanted to make content. Like you started because you wanted to build a business and you realized that content was like the way to do that. Yes. And now it sounds like your mindset has shifted a little bit.
I'm glad you called that out because I'm a fraud.
That's what I'm here for.
I was always, and I am obsessed with sports. Trying to figure out the optimal way to do that, I'm okay with. Like, I'm okay if you want to optimize your stuff. But do you want to be making certain types of videos just because it's going to get you viewership and following? Like, if I'm obsessed with soccer, do I go and do football just because it's going to lead to better monetization purposes?
Sure. Yeah. I mean,
that's kind of where this is all coming from.
Yeah, that's a question. I mean, we get that question 8,000 times a day. You guys going to start doing basketball stuff? Are you going to cover fantasy basketball? Are you going to do basketball trivia or whatever? It's just like, it's not internal to us, you know? Right. And it's such a bad long-term play, and it's something that will fade out so quickly if we don't want to put our time and energy into that for the long term. So I guess like kind of going down that point, there are a lot of people that do have something that they love and they start creating. And I think the hardest thing to get over is that first 6 months or a year or 2 years or 3 years with no promise of anything in return to the content saying that they love it. And we actually got a question in the Discord the other day. There's a kid within the Big Content Discord who has been posting on TikTok regularly and started to get like a lot of traction, but his page was all like funny, like meme pages. And he's like, I'm kind of burnt out creatively. I just started a new job and I don't really have time to like keep up with my page. And that is almost like,
he doesn't like it.
Right. And that was where I'm like, you're starting to stop. You're not thinking about it clearly anymore. You've gotten yourself to put this thing on a pedestal that you're not even like asking yourself whether or not you want to keep doing this anymore. If you got to the point where you're like, I'm forcing myself to like create, what you were creating to begin with was a fun outlet for you, but you might not need that outlet anymore. Right. And if it ever gets to a point where you don't need that outlet anymore, that's fine, because you're probably being fulfilled elsewhere. So like the art of creation for me came from a place of like, this is how I express myself. Like I literally don't know how else to get it out there in the world, whether it's like to my friends or someone else, but it felt so comfortable to me to be on camera. So I was like, I want to continue doing this because this is how I'm like growing as a person. As weird as it sounds, like that was the best way for me to get my thoughts out and have a clear stream of consciousness. And I think the best creators, the ones that will last the longest and the ones that are really going to be able to ride it out for like the decade, are the ones that start from some sense of that. It doesn't need to be as pure as that, but it needs to be from some sense of like, I'm doing this purely for a fulfillment thing inside me.
I don't want to say you can't get burnout from your passion.
Sure.
But it's got to be, if you're passionate about something, it's got to be hard. And it's got to be years and years to burn you out.
Yeah.
Like if you love the NBA and it's like, I watch every single one of my team's games, and after 6 years, they suck forever. And it's just like, all right, I'm kind of burnt out from it. But like halfway through a season, you're burnt out. I don't really buy that. Like that's your obsession.
Yeah, 100%. Because I've been there before with covering football. Like I get burnt out sometimes, but a lot of the times too, once you're in the creation game, you're not necessarily burnt out from football, but you're burnt out from all of the things that now surround that topic that you once loved. And maybe it's the feeling of, I mean, if you're an individual creator and you're covering a topic you love, you're probably doing the editing and you're probably making the thumbnails and you're probably doing all this stuff from the start. And that could be a burnout. And now you start to associate it with that like topic up front. So,
well, yeah, you're just burnt out from creating content.
Exactly.
But not actually from that topic.
Yeah. So like the creating content part, I could understand why that would be a little bit tough for you. So it's like finding the right expression for yourself, like whatever type of content it is, that feels like it's free flowing. And a lot of people might just write, and a lot of people want to be on video, and a lot of people want to do podcasts or whatever. So it's like finding that medium that you feel like won't burn you out. A lot of people don't want to fucking edit videos, and I empathize with that. I did for a long time starting out, but eventually you get to a point where it's like that would burn me out. If I had to make content about the thing I love plus fucking edit videos for an extra 10 to 15 hours every single week, that makes sense to me why you can get burnt out. But a lot of you guys, if you're feeling burnout, and you still love the thing that you're doing, that's where you know, like, that's the first thing that you want to get off your plate. And maybe that means getting a part-time job to pay for an editor on the side, because it's just a plus and minus game with your life, right? Like if you want content to be a part of your life long term, start to look at those things in games of numbers, where it's like, how do we subtract, how do we minus, to make sure that that thing that fulfilled me from the start is continuing to like fill up my cup there, and this other shit is not overflowing it.